My coworker trained her own replacement and didn't know it. I sat 2 desks down from Renata Cole for 4 years, close enough to hear her end of every renewal call, which meant I heard a lot of her being good at her job. She'd built her book from almost nothing, some regional trucking outfits, a couple of small manufacturers, a chain of dental offices, into 46 commercial accounts worth about $3.2 million a year in written premium. She knew which client's office manager needed a Friday afternoon call because Mondays were bad for her, and which one's owner liked to talk about his boat for 10 minutes before you could get to the renewal numbers. She kept a laminated card taped inside her top desk drawer with every account's renewal month written in her own shorthand, color-coded by how much of a headache the underwriting would be. Renata was 52. She'd been with the brokerage 11 years, 3 branches, same building the whole time, and she'd trained at least 4 other account managers who'd since moved on to bigger firms and still sent her a card every December. In January, our VP of Client Services, Owen Kessler, called a short team meeting in the second-floor conference room and announced something he called the Cross-Training Initiative. The pitch was reasonable enough on its face. Too much institutional knowledge sitting with individual account managers, not enough redundancy if someone got sick, went on leave, or left for a competitor. Corporate had apparently flagged it as a risk category the previous fall. He used the phrase key person concentration more than once, reading it a little stiffly off his notes, like it was a phrase he'd been handed rather than one he'd have chosen himself. He wanted newer associates shadowing senior accounts on a rotating basis, starting with a few pilot pairings that quarter. Farah Doyle, who'd started as an associate account manager about 14 months earlier, would begin shadowing a few of Renata's renewals. Renata seemed fine with it, at least at first. She told me in the break room afterward that it made sense. She remembered being the new person shadowing someone else's calls 15 years ago at a different firm, learning how to read a client's tone before the renewal numbers even came up. She said Farah was sharp, asked good questions in meetings, took notes without being told to, and didn't seem like the type to try to steal a client's affection out from under someone. Nobody used the word reassignment in that first meeting. Nobody used the word transition. The word was always shadowing. And then, a few weeks later, when Owen needed a phrase for what Farah was doing in the weekly pipeline report, the word became special projects, typed in a column of its own next to accounts that used to just say Renata's initials. I processed the branch's book of business reports as part of my job in policy operations, which meant I saw things a few days before anyone upstairs announced them, if they announced them at all. Every account in our system has a broker of record designation. It's how the agency management platform tracks who's authorized to pull policy documents, talk to underwriting on a client's behalf, and receive commission credit at renewal. In late February, I ran the quarterly report and noticed Farah's name listed as secondary broker on 4 of Renata's accounts. That's not unusual during a shadow period on its own. It's a normal way to give someone red access without handing them the whole account. What was unusual was that 2 of those 4 had renewal dates falling that same quarter, which meant Farah wasn't just sitting in on calls and taking notes. She was drafting the actual renewal submissions, the paperwork that goes to underwriting requesting updated terms, which is the part of the job that actually determines whether a client's premium goes up or stays flat. I didn't say anything to Renata about it. I want to be honest about that now. It felt like operations gossip, not my business, the kind of thing that corrects itself or doesn't, and I told myself Owen had surely walked her through the scope of it in more detail than I'd gotten in a 2-line meeting recap. Through March, 4 accounts became 9. I know because I watched the number climb in the same report, week over week, the way you watch a stock ticker you've decided not to think too hard about. Renata still called all 46 my accounts in the Monday pipeline meeting, going down the list out loud from memory, and nobody corrected her, including Owen, who ran those meetings with the current broker of record report open on his laptop the whole time. Farah, for her part, seemed uncomfortable with the whole thing in a specific way. I heard her in the kitchen once, telling another associate, "It's Renata's client, I'm just helping with the renewal packet," in a tone that sounded like she was trying to keep the record straight in front of a witness, even while the actual record, the one in the system, not the one people said out loud, was quietly moving underneath both of them. By April, I noticed Farah had been added to the recurring calendar invite for a mid-sized manufacturing client's annual account review, a client Renata had held for 6 years. ever since she'd cold called their old broker's expiring policy off a trade publication list, and Renata was not on that invite. I know because I saw it on the shared conference room calendar the day before it happened, a 30-minute block titled Account Review, Farah D. with Owen CC and Renata's name nowhere in the attendee list. I remember thinking someone should mention that to her, and then a coworker asked me about a lunch order, and the moment passed the way most moments like that pass, which is to say it just didn't happen. Renata asked Owen directly in May. I wasn't in the room, but she told me about it afterward at the coffee machine, which had become something like her confession booth by that point. She'd stand there longer than the coffee required, stirring a cup she wasn't really drinking, and eventually get to whatever was actually on her mind. She'd asked him point-blank how many accounts Farah was actively managing versus shadowing, because her renewal commission projections for the quarter felt light, and she wanted to understand the split before the numbers closed. Owen told her they'd talk after Q2 close, once he had a fuller picture from the branch director. That was a real sentence, he said, word for word. She repeated it to me twice like she was still turning it over. It was also functionally nothing. Q2 close was 6 weeks out, and commission calculations for the quarter would already be locked based on whatever the broker of record report said on June 30th, whether or not Renata understood what that report currently said. Asking her to wait until after the number was final to talk about the number was, whether he meant it that way or not, asking her to wait until it was too late to matter. She let it go for those 6 weeks, mostly. Not because she believed him, I don't think, but because there wasn't an obvious next move that didn't feel like an accusation, and she didn't have anything concrete enough yet to accuse him of out loud. She started keeping a private list, though. I saw the notebook once, left open on her desk while she was in the bathroom. Dates written in the left margin in pencil, account names on the right in pen, little check marks next to the ones she was pretty sure weren't fully hers anymore. I closed it and put it back the way I'd found it and never told her I'd seen it. Her Slack messages to Owen in that stretch got shorter and more clipped, the way people's do when they're being careful not to sound like they're upset while still needing an answer. Where he used to reply to her within the hour, it started taking a day, sometimes 2, and when the replies did come they were shorter than what she'd asked. Once, to a message that read, as far as I could tell over her shoulder, something like, "Can we set 20 minutes this week to go over the Q2 numbers before they close?" He sent back a single thumbs-up emoji and nothing else. She screenshotted it and showed me without saying anything, just held up her phone and raised her eyebrows. The closest thing to a complaint she let herself make out loud that whole spring. By mid-June, 21 of her 46 accounts had Farah listed as either primary or co-primary broker of record in the system I ran the reports from. Renata's own compensation is base salary plus a trailing commission tied to the size and renewal performance of her active book. I don't know her exact numbers, but account managers at her level generally sat somewhere around $58,000 base with commission that could add another $15,000 to $25,000 depending on how the book performed that year. A book cut nearly in half, which is roughly where hers was heading by June, was not a small thing to not be formally told about. It also wasn't the kind of thing you could easily prove was happening to you on purpose, as opposed to just happening, the way weather happens, which I think was part of what kept her quiet as long as she stayed quiet. The thing that actually broke it open wasn't a meeting. It was an email from a client. The manufacturing company, the one whose account review Renata hadn't been invited to back in April, sent a short, warm email in the last week of June, CCing both Renata and Farah, thanking Renata for 6 years of excellent service and saying they were looking forward to working with Farah going forward on the account. It read like something a client sends after a formal handoff meeting. Friendly, a little sentimental, referencing the transition we discussed, in a way that made clear they believed this had already been announced properly, on both sides, weeks earlier. Somewhere in the shadowing process, someone, Farah, probably in good faith, answering a client's direct question about who to call going forward without realizing no one had cleared that with Renata first, or the client simply assuming from a meeting Renata wasn't in the room for, had let the whole thing slide into being treated as settled and already known. I was at my desk when Renata read it. I didn't see her face because her monitor was angled away from me, but I heard her go quiet in a specific way, the kind of quiet that's different from someone just concentrating. No keyboard sounds, no chair creak, nothing, for what felt like a full minute. She didn't say anything to Farah, who was 2 rows over and clearly hadn't meant for it to land like that. I saw Farah reread the email too on her own screen and go a little pale, and then not do anything either, because there wasn't an obvious right move for her at that moment. She was 28, still relatively new, closer in tenure to an intern than to Renata, and the last thing she wanted was to be standing in the middle of whatever this was about to become. She didn't reply to the email. Neither did Renata. It just sat there in both their inboxes, marked unread again by each of them at some point that afternoon, the little bold subject line neither one wanted to look at twice. Renata got up about 40 minutes later and walked to Owen's office at the end of the row. The door was glass, half-frosted at the bottom, so I could see shapes moving but not hear words, just the general rhythm of a conversation. One voice going for a while, then the other, then both at once for a second before it settled back into one. It lasted about 12 minutes by the clock on my monitor. She came back out, didn't look at anyone, got her bag from under her desk, and left for the day at 2:40 in the afternoon, which as far as I know she had never once done in the 4 years I'd worked near her. Not even the week her father was in the hospital, when she still came in and just took her calls quietly with the door to the small conference room shut. She was back the next morning, on time, same as always, coffee already in hand before she'd taken her coat off. She didn't say anything to me about it directly for almost a week, and when she finally did, it was brief and mostly flat, delivered the way you'd summarize a meeting you didn't enjoy rather than something that had cost you a career. Owen's explanation, she said, was that the branch had flagged her book as a succession risk the previous fall during a regional planning review, that corporate had been pushing every branch to cross-train senior books as a standing policy rather than a decision specific to her, and that he'd meant to have a real conversation with her about the plan and the actual timeline before it went this far. He'd told her that part twice, like it mattered to him that she believe it, but he kept pushing the conversation back because he didn't want to have it before he had a full plan and a real number to offer her, some kind of transition role or adjusted comp structure. And then there was never a clean week to do it in. And then it was June. And then a client had said the quiet part first. I believe that he believed it, mostly. I also think somewhere around February or March, watching that report climb the way I did, he crossed a point where special projects stopped being an honest word for what was happening and became a convenient one. And he kept using it anyway because the honest word, reassignment, or worse, replacement, was a much harder sentence to say out loud in a Monday meeting with her sitting 3 feet away. Renata filed a formal workplace concern through HR in early July, using the branch's standard concern intake form, and attached her own notebook timeline alongside a printout of the broker of record report going back to January, laid side by side with the dates Owen had actually told her anything. HR opened a review, which as far as I know is still open as of this recording. These things don't move fast in a company our size, and nobody at our level gets updates on where a review stands until there's a final decision, if there ever officially is one. She never mentioned resigning to me, though I noticed her LinkedIn photo changed sometime in August, which might mean nothing. She's still there. Her book, last time I ran the report for an unrelated reason, sits at 19 accounts. Farah has 27, including the manufacturing client, plus a handful that were genuinely hers to begin with, from before any of this started. They're civil to each other in meetings, professional, even the way people are when they've both decided the alternative costs more than it's worth. Renata still keeps the laminated card in her desk drawer, though I noticed a few months ago that half the names on it have small pencil lines through them now. Not crossed out exactly, just marked. Neither of them has said anything to me about any of it since August.